Fruit Loops and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Eric Carter. I'd like to thank you again for coming this evening. The title of my speech tonight is Why I Feel the Government Should Not Display the Ten Commandments. Because according to a Wikipedia article, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia's official religion is Islam. Therefore, the government there requires every citizen to be a Muslim. So if you wanted to practice a different religion other than Islam, you'd have to do that in secrecy. In fact, the government there would not even recognize your right to practice that religion. Fortunately, in our country, the First Amendment to the Constitution provides us with separation of church and state. Well, what is separation of church and state? The concept was originally attributed to the English philosopher John Locke. He proposed the idea in his theory called social contract. In fact, our Declaration of Independence shows influences from John Locke's theory of the social contract. But the term separation of church and state was not coined or created until 1802. There was a letter written by Thomas Jefferson in reply to the Danbury Baptists. This letter can be seen in the Library of Congress even. The Danbury Baptists had written Thomas Jefferson because they were concerned about their religious freedoms. So in there he replied back to them and essentially stated that the First Amendment of the Constitution essentially provided a wall of separation between church and state. So the First Amendment of the Constitution has two parts. The first part is called the Establishment Clause, which simply states that the government will not hold valid any religion above another. The second part is called the Free Exercise Clause, which grants us freedom of religion. Our nation was founded on Christian beliefs. In fact, according to a website called Teaching About Religion, 70% of Americans are Christians at this time. So it would seem logical that we would want to display our Christian beliefs publicly. And in fact, most people feel that Ten Commandments do exemplify our Christian foundations. And in 1999, the House of Representatives passed a bill called the Defense of the Ten Commandments Act Amendment. Say that 10 times fast. But this bill, if passed, would have allowed government buildings, public schools, and government property to display the Ten Commandments. But it was considered unconstitutional because it violated the First Amendment of the Constitution. I do feel religion is important to our society. It's important for our community. It's important for our nation. However, I feel it's just as important that the government does not choose our religion by displaying the Ten Commandments. And I have two reasons. The first, the Ten Commandments are a good representation of our Christian foundations, but when displayed without interpretation, these statements can be confusing. In fact, the first 4 or 5, depending on your religion, deal with how to practice the faith and not really moral issues. So some folks could view these as government support for these types of beliefs. For example, one of the commandments says, remember the Sabbath and hold it sacred. Well, the Sabbath is Saturday. So those religions that practice on Saturday may feel a little superior to those that do not practice on Saturday. And those that don't practice on Saturday may feel a little guilty or oppressed by those that do practice on Saturday. There's also statements in the Ten Commandments that refer to slaves and wives as a man's property. These statements, read by someone who has not grown up in our society, could assume that we condone slavery and feel women are a piece of property. This couldn't be further from the truth. But someone who has grown up in another society, reading these statements without any type of interpretation, may come up with a different conclusion. Secondly, one of the founding principles of our nation is separation of church and state. In fact, religioustorlerance.org says we were the first nation to truly separate government and religion, and to do it so completely. And why did we do that? Well, our forefathers fled England because of a religious persecution. They felt religion should be a personal choice, not something that was dictated by the state. So their sole purpose for coming to this country was so they could practice the way they wanted to with their religion. So I hope you can see that displaying the Ten Commandments may not have the effect that many Christians expect. We may not instead show our compassion and goodwill. We may do the opposite. We may even limit our religious freedoms to those that are only deemed valid by the government. I'm extremely proud to live in a nation that is so tolerant of different religions and different beliefs. And I hope you feel, as I do, that a government devoid of religion is a good thing. I feel it shows the world that we are a nation of compassion, a nation of tolerance, and a nation of true freedom. Thank you.